Welcome to the last Cinder meeting of August. Keep your IRC open because instead of typing in the Blue Jeans chat, I'll type in there. Okay, so link to the meeting agenda. So the meeting agenda is on our Etherpad as always. Okay, the topic. Okay, so we released the Xena OS brick Monday, I think, or maybe Tuesday. Anyway, it's been released. There was some kind of backward incompatibility on one of the connectors. We removed some kind of really old workaround. So the release team wanted it to be a major release. So that's why it's 5.0.0 for OS brick, in case you're wondering. Okay. The NVMe OF agent didn't make it in. So that's kind of a drag for people interested in that. So we'll talk about that at the PTG, because we'll need to put on a push to get it early into Yoga. But other than that, so OS brick is out. Now upcoming, I should be writing this stuff here. Okay, so OS 5.0.0. All right, and so just a quick reminder, right? So the stable, saying Wallaby, it's not Wallaby. The stable Xena branch was cut for OS brick, but we probably don't want to merge too much stuff into master, especially nothing complicated in case there's like an emergency bug fix or security fix or something that pops up between now and RC time, basically. So be conservative about what goes into master brick for now. Bug fixes are fine, but we don't want to do anything else that would make it complicated to backport anything from master into stable Xena. And of course, just a reminder, the usual bug fix stuff applies. If you find a bug in brick Xena, we have to put it into master first and then backport it using the usual strategy that we use. Okay, so now what's upcoming is next week, python-cinderclient release. Talk more about that later. The week and also next week is the Cinder feature freeze. This applies to write new features for Cinder, new features for drivers. So we've got a lot of reviewing work cut out for us over the next week or so. What else? Oh yeah, and along with the feature freeze, just so you're aware, there's also the soft string freeze and the requirements freeze. So the idea is after next week, we don't want to really make any changes to strings to give the translation team time to work on them. Of course, if we see something that's like a really bad string, not morally bad, because we wouldn't have let that get merged. But I mean, misleading or inaccurate, we can change it. But in general, we don't want to make any changes to any of the strings, the translatable strings that appear in the code. And then the requirements freeze. So if you're working on a feature that is going to need a new requirement, hopefully nobody is at this point, that would have to be submitted and approved before next week. So if you're working on a feature and you're using some kind of new library or something, contact me right away and I'll talk you through how we get that approved. And then as far as, I think the other aspect of that freeze is versions. So the upper constraints will be frozen. So if you're working on something using a current library that's approved, but for some reason you need to use a really new feature, make sure that we've got that. Okay, if you have any questions, contact me in IRC and we can go over that. And I guess I should be scrolling. I think that's it for announcements. So the PTL elections don't have to be held. I think there's like Cyborg or something needs an election, but everybody else is either leaderless or had just one candidate. So we're covered for next cycle. And the TC has been elected. There were 4 people for 4 slots, so congratulations to Jay for serving on the TC again. It's always nice for us to have a Cinder person there. Eye on our interests, though Jay keeps an eye out for everybody, of course. And I guess
congratulations, Brian, and thank you for continuing to carry the Cinder torch.
Yeah, and like I said, thanks for your confidence in not like nixing my because I think if you responded really negatively, even though I was the only nominee, the TC might have had second thoughts. But yeah, I hope we can. I'm going to do one last cycle is my plan, and the 2 major things. Well, you may have seen my announcements. I mean, one thing is we need to get the reviewing situation under control more. So I have some ideas, but a lot of that depends on especially driver maintainers communicating with their managers about the importance of upstream participation to their local interests. And then also the third-party CIs are a bit spotty in their responsiveness. So that's a constant thing, but that's another thing we need to focus on. We haven't kicked out any drivers in a while, and I'm hoping that's not necessary, but we do have some CIs that have like really stopped responding. So we may have to mark some things unsupported, and if it's been unsupported for a while, they're eligible for being kicked out. So I'll be doing a review of that stuff between M3 and RC time. So anyway, the point is, right, if you have a CI that has not been responding, please start working on it right away so it's not a surprise in 2 weeks when we ask you what the heck's going on. Anyway, if you have questions, let me know. I don't want to be negative. I want to be positive. Okay, anybody else have any announcements? I think Luigi mentioned that, let's see, Okada has not actually gone end of life OpenStack wide, which I thought was the case. I don't think that impacts us. We personally, as the Cinder team, have also declared Okada and Pike EOL. Man, it's been a while, possibly 2 cycles ago. And gradually people are catching up. I guess what it does for us is we don't have to, there's no compunction whatsoever to backport fixes there. Then the way the extended maintenance branches work, those are branches that we don't release from, but can receive bug fixes. But it's on like, I forget what you call it. It used to be called like best, it's not really, it depends on what country you're in, what a best effort is. But the idea is, if it's not a really big problem to do it, we will backport stuff, but we're not actually required to. Whereas the releasable branches, we're supposed to keep those working at all times. And I'm not sure why I brought that up. But anyway, so that's sort of an OpenStack thing. And that's it. So anybody have any, is there anything I forgot that's come up recently? Okay, good. All right, let's move to the next topic then. Oops. Which is the python-cinderclient release. Okay, so we've got the link in IRC. I guess I can make this exciting. Let's see what happens. Oh, I'm not logged in on. No. go. Okay. I don't know if you can actually see that though on the screen, but anyway, that's what's out there. Now, the main thing for the Python Cinder client is we have to pop the. We're going to release a new micro version. I looked through real quickly. I think Eric's the only person who's working on a feature patch that actually would change the micro version. And then I think, Eric, your change doesn't really impact the Cinder client because,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, because the request, right, nothing's changed. Okay, good. So it's just basically, so I need to take an action item to put up a patch to bump the version number and to write a release note. What I mean is the max API version we support. Okay. And then as far as looking at what's these things that are outstanding, um, two of them are test related, and they're also extra small to add functional jobs to the gate and increase default quotas for Zool jobs. And actually, I think the default quota thing is required for the functional jobs. If somebody could please take a look at that quickly and just approve those. I found out recently, if we run functional jobs in the check, we're also supposed to be running them in the gate. And we made the functional jobs voting at some point. Well, that's the other. If they're voting, you're supposed to also run them in the gate. So we made them voting, I don't know, maybe 2 cycles ago, but I didn't realize there's this testing requirement that you're also supposed to run them in the gate. So that's what that's about. So it'd be good to just get that in before we release. The jobs have been pretty good. The default quota thing, I'm still seeing a few problems. It mostly comes, it's happening because we got a lot of concurrency and our default quotas are low. I've only seen it for volumes, but if we run into it for other stuff, we can just follow the pattern on this patch. So we're able to change the default quota setting without actually having to change DevStack or anything. We can just take care of the Cinder config, so that's good. So those need to go. I'll look at the other patches. It looks like some of them have -1, so I'm not sure whether it's a spurious thing or not. I guess the fixed list resources when use limit and with count, I haven't looked at that patch. It says it's extra small though, or maybe somebody's +2'd it. Jay has. All right, so it just requires one more person to take a look. Looks uncontroversial. And then Lee has a stop logging twice in debug, probably worth taking a look at. All right, and there's work in progress thing. Okay, so it looks like there's nothing major for the Cinder client. It would be good to get those test things in just so that we've got that before we cut the stable branch. So please review these as you have time, and then I'll be putting up the patch to change the maximum API version that's supported. So it's been a very quiet cycle for the Cinder client, but I guess that's good. Okay, any observations or anything? Okay, so yeah, and I don't think anybody else is, let's see, Alan's working on the, I forget what it's called, but exposing some of the extra specs, right? Making non-controversial, non-secret extra specs available to normal users. And I think that has no impact on the Cinder client also. It would just display it out of the JSON. So I think we're okay there. Next topic. Go back to the Etherpad.
That's me, I think.
Oh, good. Okay, Sophia, you've got the floor.
Okay, so this is really quick actually. So my idea was to heads up this bug because I know there is a couple people interested in this. Oh, I see that Rajat already replied. Sorry, I haven't seen that.
Sorry, I just replied.
So this is a Cinder issue. I've been working on it in Sina, and as per my testing, this is fixed now. Oh, okay. Yeah, that was my main question. If we support this, because I replied saying that we didn't have any documentation saying that we support this or not, so I wasn't sure what to do. So this should be fixed by now.
So
Okay.
I have wrote a spec document. If you want, I can link it.
Yes, that will be helpful for me.
Yeah, okay. Basically, just to summarize it, this was an issue that on the glance side, we didn't have multi-attach volumes properly. So I introduced the new attachment API support and the recent multi-attach support. I'm hearing a noise while saying things, so I'm not sure why. So anyway, this seems fixed now.
I think Mitchell might be trying to talk. I think he filed a bug. Mitchell, we're having a hard time hearing you. You might want to type in IRC then.
I'm sorry, do you hear me?
Okay, now we can. Sure, go ahead.
I don't know what I should explain because I just faced with one problem when we have some weird behavior when we have one connection, one reservation of volume, and it's in status attaching, and in this time we cannot to start to reserve volume once more time, the second time, and I just think it's not good behavior. That's why I just added a new valid status available. Now it works. For example, in our environment, I think it's a more bug than a new feature. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not sure. Thank you.
So it can be stated as a bug, but it was somewhat of a feature on the glance side because we had to introduce the new whole attachment API flow, which came in micro version 3.23, I guess. So all that work is done recently in Xena, and in the latest glance store release, it's available for the changes. So if you use multi-attach volumes now with that configuration, it shouldn't fail.
So, sorry, I couldn't hear what you said a minute ago, Rajat, because Blue Jeans was doing something weird. But based on the bug report, this is just a Cinder bug by itself, right?
So they're trying to create two volumes from a same image. So on the glance side, what glance does is attach that volume to the glance host, then copy the image contents to the volume and then detach it. So during that detachment and attachment process, both requests are going simultaneously. So there it is failing. Like the volume is not supporting multitask. So there is a race condition there.
Did we not handle in the glance Cinder driver the ability to service two requests from the same volume or something with one attachment?
With single attachment, like for simultaneous requests, it was failing, but recently, like we decided for a solution to support multi-attach volumes in that case. So with multi-attached volumes, it's working fine now.
But Rajat, I think you added, if I remember correctly, you added the possibility when Lance receives two requests for the same volume on the same service, you were able to reduce the attachment from the previous connection, right? So let's say instead of having multiple Glance stores, you have a single one, and you receive two concurrent requests for the same image. That would work, if I remember correctly. You fixed that, right? Because you now are able to share the same attachment in two requests from the same service. I mean, in the same service.
So we had the discussion, I remember with you, Gurkha, but we went forward with the plan of doing with multiple attachments and not that previous one.
But that means that the Glance API doesn't work reliably, right? Like, I don't know how we can rely on multi-attach to make that work.
But Rajat, if I remember correctly, when we discussed this, we were talking about how Nova does it, and Nova actually creates multiple attachments in there, but it actually only does one attach, right?
I might be missing details here. So in case of Nova, which use case we are talking about?
For example, for live migration, Nova actually creates two attachments, but it is handling everything so they can do it safely, which would be the equivalent of Glance. Glance is not actually doing multiple attachments for writing, it's only for reading. So it should be fine, right? But if I remember correctly, this was a two-step process that we wanted to do the fix. The first one was to fix the multi-attach case and then improve it so that you can do what Eric was asking for. Basically, the same service. Once the attachment is done in the host, you should be able to reuse it without any problems, regardless of the volume not being multi-attached. Was that what you were asking for, Eric?
Well, yeah, there's no reason that this working in the Glance Cinder store driver needs to depend on multi-attached volumes. I don't think that's really an ideal requirement for the driver in Glance to work right.
But if you have multiple Glance stores running on different hosts, you would need the multi-attach, right?
Well, maybe, but that's a less common case than just basic API calls on a single server.
So Gokar, regarding the live migration case, I think we have some special handling on the Cinder side also. When the volume is migrating, we do allow creating multiple attachments without the volume being multi-attached. And for this case, I think the handling I've done is only related to multi-attached volumes. So, I mean, my changes work for multiple services also and different hosts. But for single host also, it does follow the same process.
Okay, and I guess the other thing is yours is a purely Glance store side change. It didn't require any Cinder changes. Is that correct?
The schema validation changes in just that.
Okay, right. And that part was a bug fix because the validation was incorrect. Okay, forgot about those. Okay, so Sophia, was your question answered? I'm sorry, I lost track of what we're.
Yeah, I lost track a little as well. So to summarize, we needed a fix for Cinder. That was a schema validation updated, and that's the only thing. And yeah, that's as far as I follow. But yeah, I think my main concern is addressed.
Well,
Thanks.
so there's a patch linked to that bug. Is that patch correct or appropriate at all?
Let me double check now because I'm confused.
Because there's a patch that just changes the allowed states on the reserve operation. And I don't really know if that's something that we want to do.
That's not part of my changes and doesn't seem right.
Yeah, but I wasn't really talking about your changes. I was talking about this bug.
So this.
Well, we can review it offline too. If we need to, that's fine.
Yes, because it doesn't look completely right, but I need to double check. I vote down until we discuss this today. Yeah.
Okay, so with this patch, the proposal is, since we're allowing with multi-attach, in use is okay as a status. Attaching should be also because you're in the process of attaching. But presumably,
This seems very likely to introduce some unexpected problem in our API.
yeah, I'm thinking we need to look carefully because presumably this was thought of when this got added, that we didn't want to do attaching.
Sorry, but if yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry, but I looked for all information that I could find about Cinder attaching, reservation, code in just information pages. I found nothing that can be harmful if, for example, volume attaching status and we try to attach it one more time. At this moment, I didn't find any negative about it, but of course, I'm not expert, 100 times more than me, but I just trying to share my knowledge, what I found around.
Okay, that's helpful. So you have looked to see. Okay. Yeah, so we can continue to review this. So it looks like for the multi-attach case on the glance side, we're okay. On the Cinder side, we might want to consider this as a more general change. Although it still wouldn't address Eric's point earlier about requiring a multi-attach for the glance case, because this is only looking for multi-attach.
Okay. I think that's all for me so far. Thank you. Thanks, Mitya, for attending today. And
Okay, try to put a quick, what our question is in the IRC. So go ahead and clarify things if you want to. Okay, next pick is Rajat. Okay, backup user messages.
Hi. So we discussed this in Xena PTG that it's good to do. Like the backup user messages would be very helpful. So I've done the patch. Gorka has reviewed it a few times, and he had a +2 until it got removed by a rebase. So this has been sitting for a month now, and I would just like to get this in Xena because it has some basic framework which Gorka suggested. So it's very useful for upcoming user messages. So I have a link of other messages also which are based on this, but just want to get this one in first. So I just a request for reviews on that.
Okay.
So next one is also me. So should I continue?
Sure.
If I can, just a question about this backup user messages, which is a really nice effort trying to provide more information to the users, our users who are mostly, well, operators, but not only operators. Is this considered to be a feature or a bug fix? The implied question is, can we backport that to older versions? Because that's kind of makes life easier. So, not sure, just saying it loud.
It's a significant usability fix.
I don't see anything wrong with backporting this, but there is a number of sequence, like we have sequence for messages. That's the only thing that might cause problem. Like if you want to backport a user message, then we had to backport all of them in the particular sequence. Other than that, I don't see an issue.
Yeah, I don't know. We should probably talk to somebody on the stable maintenance team because yeah, I mean it's kind of a borderline call. So I'm not against it, but I guess it depends on how much code it touches actually. I think the attitude is get it more usable, you should upgrade, but that's not really a solution for a lot of operators. So, yeah, so Luigi, we'd have to make some inquiries. I just don't know. Yeah. So it's an interesting case because it's not really a bug fix, but it's not really a feature either. Like Eric said, it's a usability improvement. So I just don't know.
Okay, so let's see then. But first, let's start by merging that patch.
Yes, true. Right. So let's get this reviewed and take a look at the framework stuff that Rajat has added, and please leave comments. Okay. Anything else about that one?
So I have also done some testing, and I've mentioned that in a Etherpad. So in that Etherpad, all the user messages are available, which I've added.
Okay, thanks. Put that in the notes also. Okay, great. All right, and then Rajat, you're up again with the stable release update.
Yeah, so I was busy with some other deadlines, so I couldn't really focus. And I think there were new patches backported, so I have updated the whole list. I have reviewed some of the patches, and I want to make this a final list. Like I should be doing a release with that, as new backports will be coming. So if anyone wants any backport to be included in this, so they can add it, and yeah, that's it. Brian, you're muted.
I turned my mute on instead of off. Okay. Yeah, all right. I'll just have to look through these. I don't know that we have a definite, do we have a deadline for release? I mean, in terms of, has anyone requested one, or is this our usual maintenance releases?
Nobody has requested it yet, but it's been time and there were a lot of patches made, so I thought it would be a good idea to do it.
Okay. All right, I'll take a look. Yeah, the only one for Cinder client is to get the add missing v3 classes. I'd really like to get that one in. So let me grab that link. I think that's proposed directly to Wallaby. Is that right? And I think we need it to go back farther. This came up when we were removing the V2 API. There are a couple of Cinder client class. So the basic idea was that the V3 classes, there should be an easy transition from using V2 to using V3. But there are some classes that are V2 only that don't have counterparts in V3 because of the way they were set up. So this adds them. So the main thing is, since we've removed the V2 API this cycle, our claim has been there's a real easy way for you to migrate your scripts to using V3. If you happen to be using any of these things, then that's not true. So what we'd like to do is get these things merged. It's a real small patch, very non-controversial change. But what I'd like to do is get that merged as far back as possible before we release new Python Cinder clients, so that people who are going to start using V3 only, as we've been requesting for a while, do that. So that's the only thing about those. And Rajat has on the list. So that's the one that I definitely want to see in there. Other than that, these all look like good changes. Okay. So the main priority for the next week is, the final Cinder client patches, of which there aren't many, but also the features coming up for Cinder. So we've got some driver patches and some main things. So please focus on those. And then again, where they're located is, if you need to see where to review stuff, please go to the trying to find the link. It's follow the blueprints for Xena for Cinder. Those are the things we need to concentrate on in the next week, please. Any questions? Okay, I just had a random testing note, which seemed really important when I wrote it down, but now I'm looking at it, I don't know. So just in case you start, so we're officially still keeping track of CI failures. I think we've made a bunch of changes that have improved that, but we do need to keep an eye on this. Now, one thing I just learned last week was the default swap size for Tempest hosts was reduced from 8 gig to 1 gig. And apparently for a lot of things, nobody noticed. But for some reason, well, actually the reason's understood, but this shows up particularly if you've got any CentOS 8 jobs. You really need to run with 4 gig swap space because it's using a more advanced version of QEMU than Ubuntu is using. And that seems to account for a lot of the extra need for swap space. So what I was seeing, this was showing up, Adi Lee has been adding FIPS jobs to run Cinder. So in FIPS mode, it's the Federal Information Processing Standard, but you're supposed to only use secure cryptographic techniques, and that mostly means not using MD5, except in non-security contexts. But anyway, he's been putting together some jobs to run all our tests in FIPS mode just to make sure that stuff works. And I guess FIPS mode is only available on CentOS 8, or that's what he's working with. So a lot of these have started showing up. And what I was seeing in the Cinder volume log was all these cannot allocate memory messages. So if you start to see a bunch of those, this might be the reason. So CentOS 8 hosts in the DevStack job have a change that I don't know if it's merged yet to change the swap size. And then for Cinder, these FIPS jobs change the swap size also. So anyway, just something to be aware of. If you start to see weird errors like that, it's possible that that's what's doing it. Basically it. And then I think the next version of Ubuntu is supposed to use the more recent QEMU also. So this is going to be a problem for them as well. But that's it. Okay. I guess time for open discussion. Anybody got anything they would like to discuss? I forgot to mute again. I'm sorry. Okay, well, while I've got everybody here, we've been using BlueJeans, but right, technology changes, so it may not be as great for this as it was when we started using it like 4 cycles ago. So I noticed Eric's been having some problems. If you're having communication difficulties, please say something or type it in IRC if your difficulty is so bad. If your difficulty is so bad that you can't hear me, I guess I better say type it also.
My issue is actually caused by running Cinder unit tests because high CPU usage makes BlueJeans break on my machine for some reason that I have not figured out.
All right, and Gorka said he's waiting to run his unit tests until we get offline. So we certainly don't want to hold up people running unit tests. That's not good. So I think that, well, anyway, so please, I'm asking, please communicate if you have suggestions for something that would be better. I mean, the main thing we want is just to be able to record these easily for these video meetings, but also we'll use the same thing at the PTG and for our virtual bid cycles. So problem with Google Meet has been that it's not available in China. So we kind of don't want to use it for that reason. But there may be some other options. I know people are anti-Zoom. I am because I never get it to work right, but also there are philosophical reasons for not using Zoom. And we do have MeetPad, although I don't know that that's worked well for people. I don't know. Oh, and the recording for MeetPad is kind of a pain because you have to do it outside of MeetPad. But it is doable if it would make for a better experience. So anyway, just want to throw that out there, something to think about, especially with the PTG coming up. It would be good, to have some type of video solution that works well for everybody, since we'll be in there for 4 hours at a time. Okay. Yeah, okay, and Fernando, that's a good point. I'll have to go through that today. There are a couple of things that I know we can move to Xena, and then, so yeah, I should get them out of the list so that they're not in people's way. That means I have to create a place to put them, but I guess yoga's on the way, so to do that. All right, any other general things while we're in open discussion? Okay, it looks like nobody has more stuff. I'll go ahead and stop the recording, and then if people just want to hang out for the remaining 10 minutes for social experience, that's fine. So I'm not going to kick people out of the room, but I will stop the recording. So thanks for attending, and I'll see you in IRC next week.
Maybe we can do very quick the Cinderback meeting, or